Welcome to True and Unpolished, the podcast, a Cuss Culture production. Through this podcast, our intention is to uplift, inspire, and amuse.
Let's get authentic. This is Lydia Singleton.
And this is Nicole Wilson.
And today, on episode 1, True and Unpolished, I am inspired to talk about the COVID-19 go back to school, don't go back to school discussion that's going on right now. So in my school district, I have 2 boys, 9 and 8 years old, and in my school district, they have given us a choice between virtual online learning or in-person learning. And and this is how that happened. So this is what happened, and I get the letter from them, and it says, okay, we want you to choose, and at any point you can pull your child out and go to virtual, but you can only join in person on the quarter. But we want you to declare that in 4 days. And so my first reaction, of course, was just like horror, like how am I going to make this decision? And the pressure of knowing that this is an important decision that I'm making for my children and for my family, not just the kids, but for us. And there's so many ramifications to this decision, right? There's they need to go back to school so that I can work and like get things done. I mean, we're all thinking that.
Yeah.
Please go back to school. It's the same thing when they're out for summer break. We're like, please go back.
Ready for school to start again.
Now, so there's that. So then, and that doesn't have anything to do with COVID-19. It's just, that's life, and we need them to go back to school. And then there is, the social aspect. So my youngest has special needs, right? It's like he has a one-on-one aide in school. And so and honestly, the grandparents called me the day before I got this letter asking us to declare this and said, we will help. We will come and, help do the virtual school. So I'm thinking in my mind, well, surely that's what I'm going to do. Like I thought, oh, isn't this great? I'm going to have this option where they're going to help. And then the next day I get it. And the first thing I think to do is I send a message to our neighbors that they're a pack of kids that are always together. And their family with 3 kids, my family has 2, and they're like peas and carrots. They're like always together. And, so I send her a message, and I said, did you get it? And are you going back to school? And she said, yeah, we're going to go back to school. And what I realized in that moment is, oh my goodness, a decision not to go back to school is also a decision to stay in isolation because they cannot. I mean, what would be the point of me not sending them to school, but then allowing them to play with these close friends who are going to school, right? Yes. So that's the biggest thing to me. It's like, oh, this is not just a decision about do they go back to school, do they not go back to school. This is what's the next part of life going to look like?
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Like, are we going to stay isolated, or are we going to go back out into the world? And the truth is, honestly, this thing about choice, it's not a choice. There's no choice. It's completely ridiculous. It is not a choice. I think the real choice is 100% across the board. They say no school. Like we're suspending school, not virtual school. We're suspending school until further notice. Or they go back to school, in school. Like those are the 2 options.
Yes.
And we're not being given option 1 because in that correspondence from the school, they said, they at the top, it reminded us that federal law requires children from the ages of K through 12, or grades K through 12, must attend school. So they essentially said, look, you're legally obligated to have your child go to school this year, right? Because if I kept them home, I would say, we're not doing virtual school. There's no such thing as virtual school for special needs kids, for a 3rd and 4th grader. I'm not a teacher, right? And we work, so this idea that it's a choice. I mean, it is not a choice. There's no choice. It's either you suspend school, on a federal level.
Yes.
Or for, or you don't,
Yeah.
or the kids go back. And so I've decided that the month of August is about me getting on board with joining life again. Like
Sure.
because, and we've talked about this before, either there's divine order or there's not. That means my belief creates reality or it doesn't. I have the power to declare that all is well and that everywhere I am God is and all is well. I have the power to do that. And so I'm using the month of August for me to get into the feeling place of declaring that. It doesn't mean I'm not looking forward to it. I mean, I think that it's super scary. I mean, my sister, had a COVID-19 diagnosis, and this today will be, marks week 4 for her. And I heard Saturday for the first time she was feeling better. So that's promising and great. And I also have seen firsthand that it is not the flu.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this. So all parents are doing this right now. We're all having to figure out.
My kids are in a different school district, but the same choice.
You got a choice.
Is for us. It's either all school or all virtual, and you have to decide the quarter.
Right, at the quarter. Yeah, that's us too. So they must have coordinated all of them together to figure that out.
Yeah.
But I think that they don't know either. Like, I don't blame the school.
Right.
They're navigating completely uncharted territories. But there's that article out there, the op-ed article by the guy who was a private school teacher, and they did an experiment for a month. And they said, okay, we're going to have these, and they're private, so they could do these kinds of restrictions. They said, okay, we're going to follow all the CDC guidelines. We're going to do this. We're going to do clustering. We're not going to da-da-da. So they essentially implemented these practices and put them into place. And his opinion at the end is school, that wasn't learning.
Yeah.
Like, school didn't happen because it's impossible to have an environment conducive to getting kids excited about learning and engaged while they're all wearing masks and they're all not socially isolated from each other by staying so far apart. I mean, it's just, there's this, and he said that he himself as a teacher, he couldn't get close to his kids. Like, there's this distance, not just physical distance, it translates into mental, emotional distance from one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
The same reason why, we run away from people. I got here today and I was like, I love you, and stay over there.
Yeah. But wearing the masks too, and a lot of communicating is seeing the person's mouth when you're talking.
Well, I learned that on Sundays because I went from having people in the room and being able to, quote unquote, read the room. And know that something was working or not working and adjust. Because what I do is teaching. I'm a spiritual teacher, so I teach, right? And then I went to having nobody in the room, right? And so it's possible to do it.
Yes.
It's possible to do it. But I think his point was from the kids' perspective.
But is it as effective?
Right. His opinion was absolutely not. His opinion was if we spent money and allocated money on making a real virtual platform, like everybody decided together, we're going to make a real virtual platform that works. And then all of the homeschool people came in and taught. They joined with educators and they figured out ways to have small groups that met, like the small learning groups, which homeschool kids do. And I think he's right. Like, if you took, the people that usually don't come to the table together, which is the homeschool people and the educators, and put them together and said, how do we make this work? Something beautiful could happen. Something amazing could happen. So, I mean, honestly, I think 2 things. I think the first is that this really is a social decision. It's about, I don't want my children to be the only children that are isolated, right? And how many other parents are doing that? How many other parents are going, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it because they're going to do it, and it means my kids won't have anybody, And then there's also people that don't have the option. Like, I have the luxury of being able to work from home. It is not easy. as you know.
Yes. Yes.
But I do have the luxury to do that. There are people that don't have that luxury. Right. But the thing is that employers would have to make adjustments if federally they said there's no school anymore.
Yes.
Then employers would have to adjust for these workers. Well, now they don't have to adjust because they go, hey, you got a choice.
Yep.
You get to send them in. Yeah. You know, it's terrible. I mean, there's so many things flawed with it, and it all, in my mind, starts with the leadership. It starts with the fact that nobody is being a leader on this. Like, in this country, we're so, no other country is struggling like this in the ways that we are. And I shouldn't veer off course, so I'm going to get on to another topic. The other piece for me was that with my youngest having special needs, he already regresses over summertime. Yep. And then he didn't have school for a month since March, right? So he essentially had half a year of one, of the grade, and now he already regresses anyway. And then if I were to keep him home again, I would be putting him so far behind the other kids, because that's the other thing. It's like, if you make the decision to do it at home, you run a real risk of your kid not
falling behind.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not being, you know what I mean?
That's the biggest thing with my decision, is that with the last few months of school this year, being home, when we got report cards, it was because my daughter just started middle school, so now she gets ABC. She gets letter grades.
It's a real deal.
And I was very grateful that the school decided to give them their third quarter grades for their fourth quarter grades.
Oh, good.
So it didn't matter really what, with the whole transition, and, it's been hard on everyone. So to be graded on that, I did feel kind of was unfair, but I was glad that they handled it the way that they did.
Yeah.
But then there were also notes on the report card, stating that she wouldn't have passed with the virtual work that she did.
That's right. Yeah.
And that, to me, I don't want it to continue virtually, because that's one of the reasons I don't want it.
Yeah, like you're not even entertaining it because you know.
I mean, I am entertaining it if it really is.
If it really is what? That's the question.
I don't know.
What is it?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. What are we even entertaining? That's why this idea that it's a choice is such a fallacy.
Yes.
We don't have a choice. So anybody that tells you right now that you have a choice, it is a lie. Because they said right on the front of the paperwork that federally your child is required to go to school because we're not canceling it. So now, so if you factor in all of the things we just said, right? Like her grade, like falling behind, my special needs kid, all of these things, it isn't a choice. Not to go to school.
Yeah.
And so it just riles me. As I was sitting with it, I realized, okay, I know the choice that I need to make right now is, yes, they're going back. And the reason why is because life is telling me they have to.
Yes.
Life is telling me they have to because they're not canceling school.
Yep.
So I being one with the process of life means you embrace it as it is, and you go, okay, this must be purposeful because it's what is happening, and that's what I'm doing. And this idea, being sold this you've got a choice thing, is just not true. And I think that it's a negative form of denial, because if the people making the decisions, the people in government, and really I think it goes beyond the school board, because their hands are tied because there's laws, right?
Yep.
So if you go beyond the school board and you look to governance and you say, and we all collectively, they looked at it and said, we're really not giving them a choice.
Yeah.
How would that change the conversation and the decision making?
Yeah.
By them recognizing, because they're saying, oh, we're going to give them a choice.
Yeah, I think that's what they're trying to make it appealing, making it appear that you have a choice.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
But I think that just adds more pressure.
That's right. It's the difference between being truly helpful.
Yeah.
And appearing to be helpful. So they are appearing to give us a choice here, everybody. The true and unpolished reality is that they are appearing to give us a choice while not giving us a choice at all.
Yes.
So it is what it is, but I think it's important. I mean, I think it's a good affirmation for me as a parent, for us all to see that and to say, hey, because that, like, this idea about this choice, really, I'm gonna decide. Like, you're telling me there's a pandemic, that all the numbers are going crazy and going up exponentially, and you're telling me that now you, parent, decide that your kid either is completely socially isolated, falls behind, and falls behind his peers, or puts themselves at risk for COVID-19, and you and your family, and you know what I mean? That isn't a choice. Like, that isn't a choice. And it's not a choice we can make. I think that's the point. The point is, we can't make a choice like that, everybody. They made our choice for us. That's how I feel. I feel they made our choice for us, and the choice is that our kids are going back to school. Unless and until the federal government says there's no school, there's no choice.
Yes.
That's all I have to say about that.
And I guess that's a wrap.
You've been listening to True and Unpolished, the podcast. Let's see what happens next.